Okay, this feels good. I am trying a live stream. I tried one from a hotel once and it didn't go great. But I'm excited to try something that I spontaneously decided to do yesterday, mostly because it is a time for poetry. It's the month of April, and poems matter immensely to me. Mary Oliver, and I have this on a cross stitch back behind me, wrote, "You have a life. Just imagine that. You have this day, and maybe another, and maybe still another." Now, I really believe that every voice matters. And when we are feeling anxious, whether it's about the state of our apartment or the state of our world, taking a deep breath and coming back to what we know to be true doesn't necessarily change everything, but it changes our response. So today, I'm trying a live stream, and if no one watches, that's great because I'm just trying it. And I'll be delighted if people drop in, but sometimes I do a thing and I do it with gratitude to fumble through it for the first time. In my last line of work, I was doing a lot of crisis work, and crisis work is intense. I realized when I was going through my own life transition, for other reasons, I also needed to not be doing crisis work as a therapist anymore. So I like to remember the words of a friend of mine who goes by Rivo Jams on Substack. He says, "I don't need to save everybody. I don't need to be saved. I just need to show up." Magical. That's poetry to me. Now, I'm going to be reading poetry, and if somebody else jumps in and I see a comment, I'm going to have them jump in and read a favorite poem. I'm going to read a poem at random from a book called Blight Summer by Margaret Young. I was lucky enough to teach Margaret's son back in the day, and Margaret is an amazing writer out of Beverly, Massachusetts. By the graveyard, by the sea. Crow calls high above the backhoe, digging a fresh pit right next to last year's still fresh rectangle. Surfing is dance, too, a rested fall. The ocean smells like cat food, says the black dog in the books. The dogs are all going to that tree over there. The words all going to that hole in the ground. The newborn seals, verb for their birth is pupping, fall through ice before they've learned to swim. Same seals, same babies, those white ones we wrote letters to, for, in third grade. I kind of want to read that 20 more times. Margaret is a poet whose condensation of language, like condensing something, like condensed milk, it makes it both sweeter and more stark at the same time, which is very Massachusetts, if you know Massachusetts. So I'm going to come back to By the Graveyard by the Sea by Margaret Young in Blight Summer later, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Next, I'm going to share a poem that is one of my poems, and I'm seeing people kind of come in and out, and I'm not noticing where my comments are. So, I think I see where they'll come in. Oh, cool. Hi. If you have a poem you want to share, please comment, and then hopefully you can join in. This is my first time really doing this, and thanks. Okay, so I'm actually going to pause and share a poem that is by the writer John Fox, I believe, if I remember correctly. That is something that have brought into a lot of workshops that helps me simmer down and come back into myself. So this is a poem called When Someone Deeply Listens to You. When someone deeply listens to you, it is like holding out a dented cup you've had since childhood and watching it fill with cold, fresh water. When it balances on top of the brim, you are loved. No, you are understood. When it spills over and touches your skin, you are loved. When someone deeply listens to you, the room where you stay starts a new life, and the place where you wrote your first poem begins to glow in your mind's eye. It is as if gold has been discovered. When someone deeply listens to you, your bare feet are on the earth, and a beloved land that seemed distant is now at home within you. That poem helps me to slow down, and it's simple. I've asked people at times, like, what is your dented cup that you've had since childhood? I think all of us come into the world in a body. Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets, she talks about the body gift, and the way we look in this lifetime is part of the gift. Now, I want to get into more poetry, and I want to show a book that I know I had out that is about a book that I think everybody should have. And it's a book called Ink Knows No Borders, I believe. I think I have it in this bag here. And it is a book that I hope more and more people will order from their local bookstore. This is not it. This is a different book. And it is a book that I got at a bookstore in Beverly, Massachusetts, which is a place that I love to go because I've lived there and taught there a number of times. I found the book. Here it is. It's Ink Knows No Borders, Poems of the Immigrant and Refugee Experience. Now, I met Alyssa Raymond because she works at the bookstore where I bought it in Beverly, Massachusetts, but you can get this from anywhere. I'd love to see a book of poems by immigrants, like, go to the top of every selling place, so Amazon, whatever. Reading a book like this brings you back into something resembling compassion for people who have had different experiences than your own. And I think that matters immensely. Let me read to you from this timely collection of 64 poems. Ode to Enclaves. My lineage is Little Saigon, asphalt, 3 generations under one roof, and motherland recipes. On Saturdays, my family congregates at our favorite restaurant, Kim Phuong. Here we worship the hot pot, stuff our bellies with blessings. My auntie says, if we're gonna suffer, we gotta do it over good food. The pavement's cracked, but we know what to do. After all, these are neighborhoods of necessity. I remember the first time I saw white faces descend upon Little Saigon, their crooked beaks eager to pick meat off these streets. Squawking about craft beers and raw denim, their foreign tongues butcher every name on the menu. All their Yelp reviews sound the same. I discovered a real gem in Little Saigon. So authentic, I gave it 4 stars. Would have been 5, but the waitress could have smiled more. Now, Kim Phuong has a 30-minute wait, plays Radiohead instead of Kan Lee ballads. Waitresses speak enough English to accommodate vegan diets. Food bloggers all praise the tabernacle of my childhood, beg to know the magic of my people. In the 1800s, riots ignited violence against Chinese immigrants. After finding refuge in each other, they kindled new homes, Chinatowns. Haven't Asian American enclaves always been neighborhoods of necessity? Before my people built this little Saigon, white flight to the suburbs sucked this city's economy down to its marrow. But we know how to take leftovers and forge something beautiful. Funny how this city would be boneyard without us. Now white folks flock back to the streets they deserted, rediscover everything we rebuilt. Of course, we learned how to be digestible, how to shove our limbs into takeout boxes, skin ourselves and sell the flesh for profit. The owners of Kim Phuong can pay off debt, send their daughter to college. When their restaurant burns down one winter night, they do not cry. They can afford to rebuild everything. In Vietnamese, Kim Phuong means golden phoenix. I don't say this for the irony. It's not this poem's punchline, but my people's expectation that everything ours can burn at any second. Koreatown, Little India, Banglatown, Little Manila, no matter how many pick at the bones of immigrant communities, we always endure the scorch and cackle with a smile. These neighborhoods of necessity, always demanding we cook up the most authentic kind of survival. After all, if we're gonna suffer, we gotta do it over good food. Chrysanthemum Tran. That's the name of your poet. Chrysanthemum, like the flower, the last name T-R-A-N. Now, I'm going to look up Chrysanthemum Tran, and later in the comments to this live, I'll put where she is posting her stuff. I don't know, she has her own website. I kind of want to find it in the appendix right now, because the feeling of this is like a gut punch to somebody like me who, with my blue eyes, presents with a lot of white privilege. I breathe into my own discomfort, and Chrysanthemum Tran on page 95 of this book, her poem Ode to Enclaves. I'm looking that up right now. Okay, it's there. I'll put it in the comments later. We want to give people a sense of place when we are writing. I myself am a writer, and I'm going to share one of my early poems right now because I love to write poetry. I find it fairly easy, mostly because I've studied the poems of other people. I'm going to go grab from its place on my soon-to-be couch / second bed. We don't have to get into that right now. A mosaic of poetry, which is the first time I really anthologized my writing as a child. I believe I wrote this in 6th grade, and I still love remembering how, I think it was like the last thing I did that night before it was due, putting together this. Now, I was the kind of kid who was meticulous in my attention to detail, and here is, the dot matrix printer that I was printing on from my home. My dad was really cool. He was a computer programmer, and I wrote about all the kinds of things in different forms. Here's a limerick. Limerick comes out of, I believe, Ireland, the British Isles. A Twisted System is the title of this limerick. You've got to admit that it's strange and maybe just slightly deranged. We spend most of the year with the teachers we fear. I dislike the way it's arranged. Now, I feared some of my teachers, according to this version of me. Law for students' sanity. I think there ought to be a rule against crummy teachers at school. If I had my way, they'd do homework all day and eat cafeteria gruel. Okay. One more from my limericks. Disturbed dog. There once was a plain mongrel dog who wished to become a great frog. He'd ribbit and croak till the neighbors he woke, who silenced him with a large log. Now, limericks can get kind of annoying after a while, so I'm not going to read them all. There was a poem that I wrote toward the end, and I love that I made tiny little um, paper blueberry baskets that I submitted to a literary magazine, and it was accepted. And I won like a small something. I don't remember what I got for this submission. But this is a poem called Grandmother's Garden that was about my grandmother, Lynn Mell, who lived in Philadelphia. And I remembered getting to her garden and picking the blueberries there. So here we go. Grandmother's Garden. My grandmother's garden has a focal point that captures the eye. A cluster of blueberry bushes formed in a ring, each bush stretching high above the ground and intertwining in a canopy that filters the sunlight. When we visit our grandmother, she gives us baskets, and we spend a hot afternoon beneath the shelter of bushes, racing to fill our baskets, but not able to resist eating the berries all the while. Then my brothers leave, and I stay to let my mind wander freely. Those bushes are the dwelling of dreams and ideals too sweet to dismiss, yet outgrown long ago. But when I go back to grandmother's and those bushes, my forgotten fancies return to linger just a little while longer. I love how nostalgic I was as a child, and part of it was that Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, where my grandmother had her home, outside of Philadelphia, where she had grown up and gone to Girls High. All of it was, in fact, very far away from where I was going to middle school at Kealakehe Intermediate on the Big Island of Hawaii. And when I read this, my memories of getting to have fresh blueberries in Pennsylvania, it comes back to me, and it makes me excited about picking blueberries this year in Massachusetts. Now, do you remember writing your first poem? Oh, okay, Cash Crone from Philadelphia. Here in Massachusetts, it is 7:16 a.m. Now, anyone who happens to be watching this right now, I'm excited that people are watching this right now, even if it's just like one person at a time. That feels like such a gift. And I do have some friends who live across many oceans, or just one. Good morning. Hi. I believe in bringing people together in whatever way works for people. And lately I've been trying to do read aloud spaces. And I thought, since I have an old YouTube channel based in Montessori education from back in 2009, why not start just doing a thing? And if people join it, great. If people don't join it, that's fine too. I would love this to be a place where people can share a poem in any language. I have a lot of friends who are polyglots or multilingual. I can speak in many languages because I learned the International Phonetic Alphabet, but English is my best language. And I, again, am really like promoting this book as an important book for our time, but I'm going to read a poem that comes from Karmic Butter by Asia S. She says, "Nature is my grounding and my spiritual home." Asia is a 12-step participant, an artist, a scholar, and a practicing Buddhist. I have a lot of friends who are in the Buddhist world, so talking about karma makes sense. I got this for free. Asia just left this in a wonderful coffee shop in New Hampshire, in Exeter. And I love that she is sharing her perspective of life over the past 59 years. You can find Asia Scudder on Blogspot. Asia Scudder, SCUDDER.blogspot.com. So I am going to read to you from a page, from a poem that is on page 24, because that's what I opened to. My heart says broken. My soul says fix it. My mind says clutter. My body says clear it. My body says move it. My mind says claim it. Circular dream, circular awake. Circular ambient says drive it. My mind says clutter. I love the way that Asia goes back between the mind and the body. And it reminds me that one of my favorite practices, especially when I'm feeling a little stiff, I'm rehabilitating a spinal injury. I was rear-ended by a truck last year. Right now I'm standing, maybe not high enough perspective-wise, but who cares? I am standing in my Crocs, and soon I might start standing on some yoga blocks because I am a yoga teacher. But first I'm starting by just doing a little swinging back and forth, which is something I learned in a Qigong practice. And this is a common practice in a lot of spaces, just to get the body moving. I haven't eaten yet today. I have a cup of tea over there that I'm about to grab. But right now I'm kind of shaking back and forth in my hips, and that is feeling really good. At some point I might move this iPad down to a lower level and sit. But for right now, I like that I'm getting to work, and I'm liking that I was brought back into my body by Asia Scudder. So Asia, thank you for your karmic butter. It's smoothing out my body by reminding me of things I already know. Just stepped out of my Crocs and I'm getting my tea. Uno momento. I feel like it makes sense to ask questions when doing a live stream, and it also makes sense to be honest about what's going on in your body. When I was a practicing therapist, I was always checking in with people on their bodies. That's partly because I grew up as a dancer, as a performer, doing trust falls at the Aloha Theater in Kainaliu, Hawaii. But also, I got to be a cuddly kid who had 3 brothers, who had a wonderful chosen family community in evangelical missions. And that feels really fortunate to me, that I get to be a human who has had a lot of humans around her whole life long. And if you look behind me, I have pictures of some of the people who most deeply inspire me, as well as art. Art matters to me. I have a picture, a print of a quilt made by Bisa Butler on the wall over there. Now, I got to see an exhibit of Bisa Butler's quilts at the Art Institute of Chicago when I visited there a while back. Changed my life, just being in the presence of her art. We're going to get back to poetry because I wanted to do this with poetry in mind. And I'm going to share from a large book of poetry that is on my floor. I have poetry everywhere in my life. It's called The Lost Words. Now, Robert McFarlane and Jackie Morris put together this very large book, and I'm grateful for it because it has such beauty, and it's a great poetry book for children to thumb through. So let's see one read aloud. Jackie came from Bath Academy. Ooh, so probably in England. Okay, we don't have to read all about them today, but this is a beautiful book. And I'm going to open it to a random page. Starling. Starlings are some of my favorite birds. Okay. You might be the only one, and that's fine. Or we've got 2 people watching. I don't know. But we're reading about starlings. They are magical birds. Okay. Should green as moss be mixed with blue of steel, be mixed with gleam of gold, you'd still fall short by far of the tar, bright, oil-slick sheen and gloss of starling wing. A starling is a kind of bird. And if you sampled sneaker squeaks and car alarms and phone ringtones, you'd still come nowhere near the rooftop rip-rap, street-smart hip-hop of starling song. Let shade clasp, coal clasp, pitch clasp, storm clasp, witch. They'd still be pale beside the in the dead of night black, cave black, head cocked, fight back gleam of starling eye. Northern lights teaching shoaling fish, teaching swarming flies, teaching clouding ink, would never learn the ghostly, swirling, surging, whirling, melting murmuration of starling flock. Now, good God, that is a lot of words, and it felt like a tongue twister just reading it. But I might come back to this at the end because this was a good one. Now, I want to read one of the poems that I've written recently, and it's a poem that I gave to my friend Mike, who is a coffee shop owner down the street, so that he could like read it or do something with it for Poem in Your Pocket Day, which is tomorrow. That's why I decided to do this just kind of out of the blue, because I wanted to do a live stream every week. I might get myself set up a little differently for next week, but I'm a pretty decent improv person. So let's go ahead and read this poem. It doesn't have a title, but it is I wrote it with a number of my favorite students over the years in mind, some of the rambunctious ones. And as another friend suggested to me, I probably wrote it for a version of myself too. So this is something that is in my journal. Earlier today, I thought I was going to do this while sitting on my mattress on the floor. I'm still moving into this apartment. So, okay. I have a book of my current writing, and I've been writing a lot of poems in here. One of them, I may not have, oh, here it is, good, okay. White lies, white trash, steep climb, small stash. Lips brushing past all the words in the books, hands touching softly the nights and the rooks. Who will you be, I was wondering each time, some demigod or a warrior mime? I never needed to fetter that force. I watched you. Life was your obstacle course. I sometimes wanted to keep you close by. You and I both know that big people lie. Will you remember my hands near your head? You are courageous. Let's not wind up dead. That's when we're laughing. You'll do as you please. Batten the hatches. Let's melt all the keys. Now, that last couplet, let's batten the hatches, let's melt all the keys, after that's when we're laughing, you'll do as you please. It took me a while to come up with that ending to this poem, because I didn't want to end a poem with, you are courageous, let's not wind up dead. I feel like ending a poem that's about working with children with the word dead isn't like good form. And also, I do sometimes get nervous when I'm working with children. Back in the days when I was teaching at a place called Stonebridge Children's Montessori School in Beverly, Massachusetts, which is where my earliest videos were filmed, we had wonderful granite rocks that the kids would climb up on. And, you know, fortunately, you're trained not only in like CPR first aid, but you're trained in like spotting a child. And as an athlete myself, and a yogi, sometimes I was breathing and watching from a distance, not wanting a child to not climb up a little granite face, but also ready to jump in real quick and catch them if they started to fall because they were attempting something dangerous. I know from many years of working in education how important it is to spot a child, but also to let a child take risks. Finding that balance is tricky. And at the very end of this poem, I'm kind of coming into the times when I was working in crisis situations where I actually thought it was an important measure of working with children who were going through hard things in their families to let them practice using keys and doors. Because in many places in the world, particularly in my experience in older homes or apartment buildings, There are often many keys, many locks, and getting automaticity of learning to use keys in different locks can help a person feel calmer if they're ever in a crisis situation. So the lines, "You are courageous, let's not wind up dead," that come at the end of this poem, but then I end it with something happier and melt all the keys, that feeling of like, let's do something diabolical, no keys anywhere. That's a delightful childlike feeling for the end of this poem. I might read this poem again, but now I'm going to go to something totally different. Let's go to a classic poem. Let's go to Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. Now, if you don't know Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, please give yourself the gift of reading at least a little excerpt of Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman gets into all of the energy of what it is to be human. So it's a long, long book, but just a little clip is good. And this is actually not my copy. I'll probably give this away to someone soon. I have a different copy that is dog-eared and underlined that actually isn't technically as nice as this, but like nice looking, but I like my copy. And this one doesn't have dog ears or underlinings. But let's just read a little bit. Let's read from section 16. I am of old and young, of the foolish as much as the wise, regardless of others, ever regardful of others, maternal as well as paternal, a child as well as a man, stuffed with the stuff that is coarse and stuffed with the stuff that is fine. One of the great nations, the nation of many nations, the smallest the same and the largest the same, a southerner soon as a northerner, a planter nonchalant and hospitable, a Yankee bound my own way, ready for trade, my joints the limberest joints on earth and the sternest joints on earth, a Kentuckian walking the vale of the Elkhorn in my deerskin leggings, a boatman over the lakes or bays or along coasts, a Hoosier, a Badger, a Buckeye, a Louisianian or Georgian, a Poke-Easy from sandhills and pines, at home on Canadian snowshoes or up in the bush, or with fishermen off Newfoundland, at home in the fleet of ice boats, sailing with the rest and tacking, at home on the hills of Vermont, or in the woods of Maine or the Texan ranch, comrade of Californians, comrade of free Northwesterners, loving their big proportions, comrade of raftsmen and coalmen, comrade of all who shake hands and welcome to drink and meet, a learner with the simplest, a teacher of the thoughtfulest, a novice beginning experience of myriads of seasons, of every hue and trade and rank, of every caste and religion, not merely of the New World, but of Africa, Europe, or Asia, a wandering savage, a farmer, mechanic, or artist, a gentleman, sailor, lover, or Quaker, a prisoner, fancy man, rowdy, lawyer, physician, or priest. I resist anything better than my own diversity, and breathe the air, and leave plenty after me, and am not stuck up, and am in my place. The moth and the fish eggs are in their place. The suns I see and the suns I cannot see are in their place. The palpable is in its place, and the impalpable is in its place. Damn, Walt Whitman! No, that's from Leaves of Grass. That is section 16 of Leaves of Grass. You get that Walt Whitman was like a beat poet, and he was an old pale-faced man with a big long beard, and good God, his poetry is visceral, it's alive, and it is speaking, like ink knows no borders, to the immigrant experience and to the experience of all people willing to be embodied. Now that's a courageous thing. What would it mean for me right now to feel a little more at home in my body? It's a deep breath feeling. I'm going into the sensory experience of hearing the traffic outside my window. The area of Massachusetts I'm living in now is very close to a highway called 93. It's also close to some other nice thoroughfares, and I'm thinking about getting some of my stuff that's currently in my home over to my U-Haul storage space today. I notice the way as I breathe, I am feeling into the particularities of this moment. I'm thinking about humans who love me. I'm thinking about the ways in which my body is a little stiff. And I'm thinking about how part of me wants to open the window and part of me knows it's not such a good idea to open the window because it'll create background noise. But soon I'll be doing it again, opening the window once rush hour is over. Now, I love that I just dog-eared a page in this copy of Leaves of Grass to remember which part of it I read. And I do think it's going to help me to sit down. So I'm going to bravely move my iPad on its weird stand. It has a towel behind it right now. And I'm going to sit down. And I'm going to do it with courage and hope. And I'm going to bring some of the things I have with me, because I might read more out of this. And I'm going to bring my book that I've been writing in. I'm going to remind you all that every voice matters. And I'm also going to talk about the ways in which we can bring ourselves back. But I also want to talk about my friend Lynn Mell, who has Anomaly radio station, and the fact that one of my favorite places to go to poetry is at the Village Tavern, which is a space curated by my friend Michelle La Poetica. Michelle La Poetica is one of the most magical humans I know. She presents in a darker skin than mine. And being who she is on the planet, she has this energy of so much love and grace. And sometimes when I'm in a space of meh, I breathe into the energy of some of the humans who bring me most completely into myself. Now, that feels a little better. If you know the poet Maya Angelou, I love her so much. She also has written, as you hopefully know, novels and essays and so much beautiful writing. But when I worked with survivors of various kinds of crisis, mostly intimate partner violence and sex trafficking, I had this on the little couch, the little love seat in my office. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive. And to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. And sometimes just reminding myself by having something written in front of me is what I need to breathe through something that's challenging. As a yogi, I know that letting myself curl over this pillow for a minute and shake out my shoulders, this is a little bit of a taste of doing the end of a yoga session. Soon I'm going to start teaching yoga again, which feels yummy. No one is watching this right now, which feels fine. And I'm going to put my pillow down. I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to say, I actually kind of like this live stream thing. There's a song called Time Heals Everything that my friend Greg Warwick wants me to listen to. And I might listen to it soon. Up there it says my brain is 80% song lyrics, and I think that's true. I've written a lot of songs, and I believe in the healing power of song. More than just song, though, I believe in the healing power of people breathing and coming together. And about a year ago, I formed a collective called the 44.4 Collective. We now have an Instagram called Team 44 Point, spelling the word out, 4. And that was because some of the survivors I was working with as a therapist really wanted space to get up and share their story. And I began to write a show that I'm still writing, that I did like a quiet staged reading where we didn't record, just got some photographs back in May, almost a year ago now. At the time of staging it, there was this sense of, okay, pause. This is a staged reading, this is just the start. But I recently put on Patreon Team 44.4 because in about 2 years' time, I am hoping to make a documentary film using amateurs. Mostly we might use a few professionals. My older brother is an award-winning documentary film editor in Philadelphia. My brother Isaac Mell. So he'll probably get like final look. But I like the idea of using amateurs and doing it in a gentle, slow way. Because when I started writing that musical, it was at the request and the invitation of people who had gone through a lot of their own challenges. I don't know for sure if I coined the term, but I started using with some of my clients a word, traumagic, that was a replacement for traumatic. Now, trauma is real. If you've ever like gashed your arm and needed to go to a space where they can give you stitches, you know that it can be really scary. You can go into shock looking at blood pouring out of anything. Now, my mother, when I was a child, was a nurse, and she and one of her sisters, both nurses, have this energy of like, in a crisis, they hop into action, and that's good. I learned how to be in crisis spaces by watching the people around me. When crisis or trauma are involved, there's this pendulation we do back and forth, like an old grandfather clock. There's that pendulum where we have to remain calm, but also think fast. My friend Michelle Riviera, who is one of the trainers, dance instructors, and also works in an emergency room, she gave me my CPR training afresh last Saturday. And it was good to get the CPR training again because it's been quite a few years since I got it. But what's magical is when you've done enough crisis work, you can stay in a calm space inside of your body while also breathing and keeping the people around you calm. Something that not everyone understands is that we together, we have mirror neurons inside of our brain, but also our whole bodies reflect back the energy of the people around us. It's a fairly mysterious thing. And when I breathe and look away from my camera, sometimes it's because I have a tension headache. We can get back to poetry. I'm seeing a magnet that I have across the room that says, adopt the pace of nature. Her secret is patience. That brings brings me into asking, what poem wants to be read next? The poet I'm thinking of right now is Alison Luterman. I got to meet Alison Luterman because of a magazine called The Sun Magazine. Alison Luterman, I'll make sure I put her website in the comments. When I met her, I loaned her my hoodie. We were at a retreat center out in Western Mass called Row Retreat Center. This is a long time ago. I think I have some of Alison Luterman sitting in a pile right there, so I'm going to grab it in a minute. And while I do that, I'm also going to show a book that I made for some of my larger note keeping and covered with stickers from some of my favorite places. I'm going to sing while I get Alison Luterman just a little excerpt from the show that I started writing, which has a different name now, but at the time we called 44.4 the musical. You're sitting in a room. It's this real important room. I'm going to get the book by Alison Luterman. Okay, small problem. Alison Luterman must be elsewhere. Might be in my backpack because I've been carrying her almost all the time lately. I love her poetry so much. And I'll at least link her even if I can't find the book. I'm sitting in a room. It's this gentle, quiet room. And I'm breathing deeply. What I found is not Alison Luterman, but it is important. It's some of my notes from yoga. And in the world of yoga, there are many prayers that are basically poems. So put on my readers and read you one. I'm not going to try to read this in the original language. That would feel like too much. And I could try, but it's not what I feel prepared to do today. But this is from the Green Tara Sadhana. I go for refuge to the Lama. I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma. I go for refuge to the Sangha. Lama, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. If you don't know the world of Buddhism, these are weird words to you. And I am not the expert in Buddhism, though I have a lot of friends who are Buddhist practitioners and teachers. Lama, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we could get to that, but I might link to other resources. These are 4 limitless prayers. So in the Green Tara Sadhana, a concise version, we take refuge in the Lama, the teacher, the Buddha, the original teacher, the Dharma, the way, the practice, the Sangha, the community. 4 limitless prayers. May all sentient beings possess happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separate from the joy free from suffering. May all sentient beings remain in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. That's a beautiful thing to do, to pray for all beings that are aware of themselves. Happiness, freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separate from the joy free from suffering. may all sentient beings remain in equanimity, even gentle, loving energy, free of attachment and aversion. Now, I could talk to you about attachment theory from a therapist perspective, but in some ways, Buddhism is such a beautiful form of devotion because it takes us out of being overly concerned about the ways in which we're attached and brings us into a state of freedom. I'm sitting in a room. I am breathing in this room. And I'm gently waiting. And I'm not afraid to pause. Because breathing is a cause that's worth celebrating. And I wish to be gentle now, because my breath matters somehow. I am grateful that I started training as a singer when I was a little girl. And it is in breathing that I come back to knowing that I can be who I am. I like that I can look around the room at sources of inspiration. I'm glad that I can feel comfortable improvising. I love that I was trained on a church stage at the United Presbyterian Church of Manoa by Jean McIntyre. She was my first music teacher. And simultaneously, I was going to Nan Barton's kindergarten class at a little elementary school, little public elementary school. I believe it was called Highland Park in Upper Darby, I believe, Pennsylvania. It's funny that I don't remember. I was little, 4 or 5 year old in kindergarten. And often when I am fearful or anxious as an adult, I go back to that little girl who just stood in her cool striped shirt and sang out from the stage. And I think I remember, though it might just be the stories from that time, but I think I remember the feeling of singing my first songs. I just got to sing Praise the Lord over and over again as a little 4 or 5 year old in a performance. And how lucky was it for me to be trained in performing and to be kind of fearless as a performer at a young age. Some of my favorite performers, but also my favorite humans, have their pictures up on this wall. And I got to grow up feeling brave as a singer. And when I do group facilitation or when I do consulting for groups, I get to look at the people around my space and breathe with them. Now, at some point I'll do a live and have a friend over when I'm doing that live. Doing lives on Wednesdays, so part of the reason I have a twin mattress that will soon be elevated on like an actual bed frame. Part of the reason I have that is because friends who don't live here in the area that I'm living in Massachusetts right now can come over and spend the night. And I'll do a live with a friend sometime soon on a Wednesday morning. I look around right now, and while I can talk for an hour straight, I would rather have another friend here. So I hope my next live will have somebody else next to me. Right now, I'm thinking about Eli Younger, who played trumpet with a band at the Brighton Music Hall last night. I'm wondering how it went. I kind of wanted to go, but I knew I needed to be up early for this. So I'll probably DM him on Instagram later today and be like, how was it, Eli? But tonight, I'm excited that my friend Jamo Chavez, who is part of the band Glass House out of Lawrence, Massachusetts, is going to be over. I might make him like carry a heavy thing, but mostly I want to thank him by giving him some fresh baked brownies that are made with peanut butter. Um, and Jamo is 24. He is love in motion because he helped me pack up my condo in Amesbury 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I've eaten or given away all of the brownies that I made to thank him for that act of service. But Jamo, who goes by Elijah in social media spaces, he is also one of the most gifted musicians that I've known. And I'm hoping to spend at least 15 minutes just strumming through some of my own music with Jamo. I'm working on building calluses back on my fingers. I'm going to start taking lessons at a local place called the Guitar Stop in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is pretty close to where I'm living now. I want to be good at teaching all kinds of music, but also I want to be able to like pick up instruments and play them. I can learn fairly quickly, but we don't need to get into that right now. I am thinking about how good it is to pause. I am thinking about many other poets. And I'm thinking about how when we breathe, we can offer who we are more fully. I have so many songs I've written, and I'm going to not share a song I've written, but instead remind everyone that pausing and also coming to a feeling of completion is part of being in the love energy with ourselves, part of being a mahalo person, a person of gratitude in the world, part of dancing. Got my dance hall from Kittery, Maine. Part of loving energy. I've got my row home from my friend Eli Shaka's space in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. My friend Eli runs a coffee shop, but also I've got the Little Wolf coffee shop and the Hideaway from a place in Rangeley, Maine. Places, good coffee shops, good love bookstores like Jabberwocky in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Remember the wisdom of, I like to say our friend, though I've never met him, I hope to someday. The wisdom of Lupe Fiasco, the incredible rapper whose birth name is not Lupe Fiasco. The wisdom of kick, push, coast is what is needed on our planet at this time. Do not be afraid to kick in the ways you know how. I'm going to start occasionally taking some of the Muay Thai classes at my gym, One More Rep in Roxbury, Mass. Push forward, whether you're pushing a stroller or pushing energetically through the crap of what is going on the planet right now. the true evil that is trying to destroy lives. But also learn to coast. Also learn to end. I'm ending my life. And a few people came in. I got 4 thumbs up. I'll take it. Hopefully next week I'll have someone who's willing to like crash a night and join me live on Wednesday. But for today, this was the right amount. Be brave enough to coast, to kick, to push, and to live out your truth.